Hello, my name is David Matthew Barnes. On behalf of Amelia.Indie authors, I'd like to welcome you to this conversation with Hollis Arbin. I'm very excited to talk to Hollis today. Among many other things, he's written a wonderful book called Struggles of the Soul, which we're going to talk about a little bit in the half hour. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about my remarkable guest. Hollis says with pride that he is a country boy from the hills of North Alabama. He lettered in three high school sports, which were football, basketball, and track, and earned a football scholarship to the University of Southern Mississippi. Declining the scholarship, Hollis worked for the Army Ballistics Missile Agency in Huntsville, Alabama, and attended night classes at Athens State College, earning a degree in math and physics. In 1965, Hollis joined the emerging computer industry of South Florida, where he developed early stage operating systems and managed super software development teams. In 1975, Hollis founded Computer Resources Incorporated, a leading provider of home care automation solutions. He sold it in 1985 and retired. But in 2003, this man is not idle, I must tell you. In 2003, Hollis began teaching math and coaching football in local middle and high schools for fun and donating much of his salary. Hollis's first story, Struggles of the Soul, is fiction, but those who know the author realize he lived the life of his main character, which we're going to talk to him about. His main character is Hal. It's a story about an old guy who loves touch football in the park, teaching math and playing checkers. It's a wonderful story. Presently, Hollis lives in Yulee, Florida, where he tutors math students, writes, and plays tennis. Hollis, welcome to this wonderful interview. I'm so excited to have a chance to talk with you about all the remarkable things that you've done in your life, including your great book.
Well, you're kind, sir, but thank you for the compliments.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about your interesting background. All of these many things that you've invented, you've created, you've supported. Where did the writing come to you in that journey? Where did you first start to feel like those impulses, like, I might be a storyteller?
Well, I guess I'm the least of Dad's clan, the 11th child, and Dad was quite a storyteller. So when he wanted us to work, we sat around the tub and shucked corn and did whatever it was he wanted us to do back in the old days, and he'd tell tales. Okay, so I just picked up the natural knack of telling tales, and that's just part of me. When I preach, I tell tales about different things in the Bible and whatever.
Do you find that because often other writers when you are a writer and you're a storyteller, that other people feel a little bit inspired to share their stories with you? Do you find that that's the case, that people sort of, once they know you're a good storyteller, that they're like, let me tell you about the time when I was 12?
Absolutely. That's what's fun about sitting around the coffee shop, on the island, sitting on a nice day, getting a cup of coffee and meeting new people. I'm new to the area, so I get to meet new people around, and it's been fun.
What is it about storytelling specifically, the folklore, the verbal telling story, the sitting down with a group of people like you were talking about and sharing a story with them? What is it about that process that speaks to you, that you like so much?
Well, there's three areas actually. It just occurs to me that in listening to you, I'm trying to figure out what makes me tick, but you're right. One is I tell my students stories. I'm a math teacher, and particularly when you're a sub, you try to get the kids' interest, right? And so you tell them tales. If you're trying to inspire them without talking about the Bible or something, you can talk about whatever and things that inspire you, and you can challenge them. You do that. You tell a tale, tell a story. Family reunions is where I started. Remember being the least of a dozen kids? My nieces and nephews are older than I am. Okay. So when we go to family reunions, they always ask me because nobody's dad's not there, or his parents, So I wind up telling the younger generation tales about the old days when the Black Panther roamed through the woods, and those are things that come from a bit of truth. Like I said, I tell truth in fiction. I make up stories about stuff, and it's all based.
Do you find that because I know a lot of sharing of folklore and stories and so forth, that there's a part of it that's sort of the reason why the stories are told is to keep the stories themselves alive. And you talked about sharing it with the next generation. Is that something that you think about?
Oh yes. In fact, I'm working on some stuff for family. I've got dozens of nieces and nephews, you can imagine, with eight brothers and two sisters. But I'm writing for that generation, for my little great granddaughter. But people don't realize what it was like. We didn't own a car. Never
Mm.
owned a car in my life till my boss bought me one when I went to work after I finished school. Just stuff like that. Rode my bicycle to work, rode my bicycle to work to school, and school home. But I came from that generation. Finished high school in '55, so it's a good while ago.
And do you come from storytellers? Were your parents storytellers as well?
My dad was a storyteller. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. He
So
told
when you got to college and you played the sports and so forth, and you declined the scholarship to continue on and made a major life change. Just wonder if you could talk about that a little bit, and some of your work, the extraordinary work that you did in the military.
well, you're nice about that. You're complimentary, but just a simple guy that knew at 129 pounds, I didn't need to be playing college football. My big brother was the jock, and I played
Hmm.
behind him. And by the way, I reminded him that our record was better than his. But to me, football is what you play in the park, which is lots of
Hmm.
struggles. So I still played touch football in park till I was 70. And just somebody wants to go play touch football, I'm ready, right? So
Hmm.
that was a part of me. But I had an invitation to test for West Point. I failed
Hmm.
my exam for West Point. Academically, I wasn't that sharp. My math was good, but the rest of it wasn't. But in the process of all this, what are you going to do? I'm going to night school,
Hmm.
take my test for the Air Force since I can't go to West Point. I had four brothers in World War II, so I'm a military kind of guy. And I came home, and a couple of days later, I had a letter from the old Army Ballistic Missile Agent inviting me to go to work as a math aide. So I'm going to night school and just as a math aide. So it all just worked itself out. And that's basically what started it. And I never got my master's, never got a doctor's because I fell in love with the computer industry. 1965, my beautiful wife and I, which is one of my tales about her. In fact, I'm going to tell you a bit about her later. But anyway, uh, we chunked the computer. NASA did not mind me leaving. I'm just another junior aerospace engineer. But in a day when computers, databases were not out there, my wife was an outstanding typist. They
Hmm.
did not want her to leave. She controlled all of the documents in the place. In any case, we chunked it, went to Fort Lauderdale, fell in love with computers, Fort Lauderdale Beach. What was not to like about that in 1965?
Hmm.
And it was just a new life. We both loved it. I worked all day, all night, go home for dinner, go back and work, come home for breakfast. It was just great sport. But that was the era, the transition of the computer. And I didn't do anything great. I'm just telling you guys, I was just one of those guys that learned on the way. We needed an operating system. Uh, over the weekend, you start working on one. You got a project to deliver, you work on an operating system.
Do you feel like, because I mean, had such a wide range of experiences throughout your life, understandably so, but did you find that when you sat down to write the book, Struggles of the Soul, did you look back? Did you think about moments and experiences in your life, and did they some way inform the writing itself when you were writing the book?
No, honestly, it didn't. There was a little girl who inspired that. Um, she was my best buddy. And after her mom and I divorced, she would
Mhm.
text me. Back in the old days, she would send me an email. And she typed faster than I did. And at 5, she'd be my secretary. She'd be in my office all the time. And her office was at home upstairs. Grab the phone. Mr. Urban's office. May I tell him he's calling? About this big. But so she would text me. I'd answer, and one thing led to another. We started a conversation. So I started writing, basically thinking about her and thinking about that, and just I'm a thinker, thinking about life, and I started putting it in notes. I'm not sure they were for her; they were just notes, and one thing
Mhm.
led to another. So I'm not sure. Just started popping out, I guess.
And so when you were putting these notes together, was there at some point where you're like, I think I might have a book here?
I just started writing a story. I didn't bother to edit. I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I decided one day to print it. I went to
Hmm.
Kinko's and printed it, went to the coffee shop, sat down there with a red pen, and it started getting 20 pages and 30 pages. And yeah, I decided I'll just make a story out of it. Had no confidence that I could make a novel. I was just playing.
And there's so many great messages in Struggles of the Soul, including messages about faith. Was that something that was really important to you to make sure that those messages were in the book for whoever might find the book and read it?
I just tell them. I didn't necessarily tell them to make a point, but I just
Mm-hmm.
tell them. I talk about everything. I try to be careful with my students and not preach to them.
Mm-hmm.
I tell tales, and the tales include those. Um, but it's maybe I'm just different. I'm a philosophical guy. It's just my nature. I was invited to preach when I was about 22, covered 3 little churches.
Mm-hmm.
I just talk about the Bible and Jesus like I talk about everything else. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that for a summer. And so Christianity is just built in. It's just part of what I am. Not a
Mm-hmm.
very good Christian, but Christianity is built in. And I find that the Bible is unbelievable, just unbelievable. The philosophy that's there, the consistency that's there. And you want to talk about heroes, just read.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a kid that has a slingshot,
Mm-hmm.
deals with a lion.
He's
Now,
my namesake, so I know David well from the
you should
Bible.
know him very well, right? You know what I'm saying. I did love the stories, the Bible stories.
Hmm.
I found the Bible stories of today that intrigue me are Revelations and Daniel, but we won't
Hmm.
get off on that political and philosophical side. Uh, I don't know. Just I ask myself this question. I'll be 85 this month. Okay, why am I still playing decent tennis? Why do I feel so good? It's a question. Does God have something for me to do? I'm a fairly good math teacher.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know what I'm around for. I don't honestly with you. Feel good. So I
Well,
like.
I think it's remarkable both in the verbal storytelling and the written storytelling as in your book that there is power in words and language. And I feel like a lot of what you write is can be used to connect either people with new ideas, new thoughts, new new explorations of faith. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. And I think that as writers, sometimes we often don't realize that power of the language and written word until we see somebody respond to something that we wrote. And certainly your work is very responsive. I think that there's some really great stuff in there in terms of where we are in the world today that could offer some comfort and some guidance and all sorts of things. I'm not surprised that you're a teacher because you're the writing and the stories feel so helpful in so many ways. It's almost like, a conversation with a friend, if you will. So I know that you've got a story to tell us tonight, which I'm very excited to hear. So I've got my coffee. I'm going to sit back and be your audience, and I'm going to give you the mic, give you the floor to be able to share one of your stories with our viewers and our listeners.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. You ready? Um, hey, everybody. This little story, I'm making a short version of it. It was really 2 stories put together. Of course, they're about girls. All my stories, I'm in it somewhere, and there's always a cute girl, right? So the first story, which precedes it, I'll tell you in about 30 seconds, was about Lucy. I met Lucy in the mountains on a youth retreat, and it was just love at first sight. Where Lucy was, Hollis was. Where Hollis was, Lucy was. Everybody saw that. Went away. Lucy called me, invited me up for the weekend. Her parents said, okay, come up. And I did. And I invited her to go to a University of Alabama game. Big Brother's playing. It was just a great relationship. About a week later, I get a Dear John letter. Dear Hollis, I met somebody. See you later, kind of thing. What was funny about that, I wished her luck and it was okay. But a year later, which is the story for tonight, a year later, I had finished my major in math and physics and a bunch of other stuff. And I decided to take a year to go play. Now, I'd been going down weekends to Southern Miss and hanging out with my big brother and all the jocks. And so I went down to party for a year. Well, I went through the chow line. I looked just like my brother, so they fed me in the football chow line. I gained about 25 pounds working out with those guys. Came back, I was proud of all my muscles and all that stuff. So, but that sets the stage to my story. So a year later, in the spring, school was out. I came back to the Arsenal in Huntsville. I walk in to sign in, and oh wow, a really, really pretty little girl sitting over there. She looks up and smiles and said, "Hi." Hi. That's all I could say. I was just blown away. So I walked out of the office like an idiot. Went over next door and asked the buddies over there. There's a bunch of us college kids working there. I said, "Who's the new girl?" "What girl?" "No girl." They wouldn't tell me anything. Well, next day this goes over and I go in. She smiles and says hi, and I said hi and walk out again. Ernie says, "Let it go, man. She's dating Tex. Forget it. Just give it up." Okay, so I go down to lunch and walk down, and this was the next day. So next day I get a letter. Smells good, beautiful handwriting. I open it and it says, "Hollis, I'm sorry I missed you at break." Okay. Threw it in the wastebasket. Obviously the guys are messing with me. You got that, right? So threw it away. Went down to lunch, and Landa, which is another lovely lady in the office, walks over, puts a hand on my shoulder and says, "Hollis, you didn't come to break this morning." I said, "Landa, those guys put you up to writing that letter, didn't they?" Well, she fessed up. "Okay, thank you." Well, I walked back upstairs after lunch, and I walk in my office. There's nobody there but me. Now, the boss and a couple of other engineers and everybody was there. Nobody's there. So, inspiration. Grab the telephone, dial the secretary's extension. She answers the phone. "Marie, I'm sorry I missed you at break this morning," pretending that she wrote the letter, right? "Sorry I missed you at break this morning, but would you like to go bowling Friday night?" She said, "Sure." "Oh, yeah, I'll come over and get instructions." I was an idiot all the way around. I was just blown away with this girl, right? So I hang up the phone. Now, I remember the guys that told me she's dating Tex. You don't have a chance. I walk out my door and turn right. Her door is about 20 feet to the right. Guess who walks out her door? Tex. Wow. All right. Tex was standing there talking to her when she called and invited me, or when she invited me over for instructions to her house. I like this. So I got instructions, and like an idiot, I walked back over, and everybody's in the office now, and I walk back in. Guess who's got a date with you know who? This was not smart, guys. Billy, my buddy, walks over. I always wrote with very fine fountain pens and had red ink. Billy picks up my fountain pen, pops the cap off, and sticks it right here to my chest. Now you got to know, this is my musculature. Remember I told you I'd gained about 25 pounds at Southern. I could do 21 hand push-ups. I was just great shape, right? Well, this red circle starts growing on my chest. It gets to be about the size of a quarter. Billy pops the cap back on my pen and gives it back to me. Everybody in the office is saying absolutely nothing. They're just watching this. I sit back down and Billy goes to work and I go to work. I don't say anything. Billy does. Well, we box. Billy's dad was professor to college where we went night school. And I spent as much time at Billy's house as he did, So we boxed that night for the last time we boxed in a while. And it was a kind of rowdy first round, and finally I just pulled off the gloves, shook hands, and said, "Okay, I'll forget about it." It was over. Well, I went in on Friday now. Remember, got a date. I do have another shirt, but I don't have my favorite yellow muscle shirt. Walk in and my glasses on the desk, and I pick them up and the earpiece is missing. It's gone. Ernie had screwed the earpiece thing out and threw it away. Says, "You're laying now." Now, I only wore my glasses for night driving and bowling. Bowling and pitching horseshoes, if you know what I'm talking about, right? So I tape my glasses up, and I don't have my favorite muscle shirt, but I got a date with the girl. Remember that. So we go bowling, and I tell her all why my glasses are taped up and all this stuff. She's a good sport. Now, Marie is 18, just out of high school, and her dad is administrative chief for Dr. Von Braun. He's a stiff upper league military guy. Marie cannot be in at 10:05. It's 10 o'clock or earlier, not 10:01, 10:02. She reminded me she had to be in at 10. So we pull in the driveway with the lights off slowly and quietly because we got 5 or so minutes left and we're not getting those up. And I'll just say this. We spent most of the time talking. How's that? Well, I walked her to the door and said good night, like a gentleman, and went home. Well, I was smart enough Monday morning not to go in bragging again, right? I just went in quiet. Well, let me make the story short. They asked anything they wanted to. I had nothing to say. She never dated Tex again, and I never dated anybody else again. We were married that November, 5 months later.
Hmm.
Happily married for 33 years before she got extremely sick and passed away.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's the story of my girl.
Well, that what a remarkable story, and what a wonderful tribute to her as well. A very very beautiful, heartwarming story there for sure. And, I can see why so many people love having you tell them stories. It's so captivating, and the stories are so transportive. You feel like you're there, and such a remarkable way of painting the picture. You do what extraordinary word painting is what I call it with the story. So I really want to encourage everybody again. We just have a couple minutes left. And in doing so, I want to remind everybody that Hollis's book is titled Struggles of the Soul. I really encourage you to read. It's a great read. You can find it pretty much where books are sold. And Hollis, I just want to thank you for what you do, what you've done, and for all of the extraordinary work you continue to do. I do hope you keep writing. I hope another book. I know there's another book in there somewhere, so I hope you write another one. And when you do, I'd love to talk with you about it again, just to kind of find out where you are and so forth. And writer to writer, I really have a high level of regard for your stories and your storytelling ability, which is an art form and a skill set all itself. And you've certainly mastered that in a great way. Thank you for the time today. I really, really appreciate it. And good luck. Not that you need it, but continued success to you, sir. Thanks so much for sharing all that with us tonight. And on behalf of Amelia.Indie Authors, I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for sharing this time with us and listening to this great conversation with Hollis Ardman. And we will have more content for you very, very soon. Thanks so much for listening.
Good night.